everybody, and welcome to our September Ag Science Cafe. Today, joining us, we have Shawn Fels from Portland Creamery. Let's hop straight into these interview questions. So first off, can you tell us a little bit about the milking system that you use?
Yeah, so just to start off, I want to clarify, I don't actually own the animals or the dairy part of the operation, but I would love to tell you about our dairy farmers system, which is absolutely phenomenal. I am really lucky to be able to run an artisan cream farmstead, meaning it actually produces the finished good at the same location that we milk the animals. And I'm able to do that without owning the farm, which is extremely rare, because I found a farm who was willing to have me there day in and day out, and our employees around their home. And so I'm very thankful for that. But also for their exceptional skills. They're absolutely phenomenal individuals, incredibly talented. And while our farmer, Lauren, is an expert in animal husbandry, she's a veterinarian and has a successful practice there. Her main dairy income is actually from genetics because she's such a successful breeder. And our herd is comprised of some of, if not the best, dairy goat genetics in the world. She's a very, very well-renowned geneticist for that reason, or breeder rather. Her husband, John, is an incredible engineer. And so all of these micro-scale milking systems, we all know how tiny goats are compared to cows. But when you're thinking about food from that animal, there's a big difference in a couple gallons of milk and a quart. And that's the type of difference you get between these animals. And so John has been able, as a very, very talented engineer, to design systems for our farm that are environmentally sound, very, very efficient, lots and lots of recapturing of energy, lots of homemade, very innovative systems. We actually use geothermal cooling to cool our milk after pasteurization, and a series of other systems that he's put together that help us be as environmentally conscious about our wastewater, total water consumption, total energy consumption as possible, which is extremely important when you're located in the middle of farmland, which already has wastewater needs associated with it and whatnot. So it's a parallel parlor. The little goats come in, they eat some grain. A PVC system actually locks into place and makes sure that they don't leave before the milking is completed. And then a vacuum system attaches to both teats. Goats only have 2 versus the 4 that we see for a cow. So I think the system milks 4 goats simultaneously. But it'd be easy if you've only seen cow milking systems to walk in and think there were only 2 milking stations, since the cups all hang together.
So can you tell us a little bit about the products that are produced from the milk of the goats?
Absolutely. I looked at Portland Creamery as my first cheese business and ultimately acquired it because of this incredible combination of products that was very ethical and poised for utilization of as much of the nutrients as possible. And it's something that you see a lot in really big companies because they have to recover the money they spent for what the dairy industry calls other solids. Those are like the lactose in the milk. And cheese doesn't use lactose in the milk very much. You turn a little into lactic acid, but it's a whole lot of sugar you bought that otherwise you wouldn't be selling unless you find something to do with your whey. Portland Creamery is too small for standard whey processing, but we have a product that is a caramel sauce that is made with whey and sugar and cinnamon and vanilla and some other aspects there, and then simmered slowly for many hours to reduce it and drive a Maillard caramelization, which limits bitterness and gives an incredible finished product that's balanced for savory, salty, sweet, everything. So I'm really excited about that one. For the cheese side, which is more of what every artisan creamery is producing, we do a chev, which is kind of the quintessential goat cheese. It's fresh. It comes straight out of the vat to our consumer. There's no age on it whatsoever. And it is acidified highly is the style of cheese. And so it's tart when you put it in your mouth, and it's almost refreshing. And that is not something you can say about too many types of cheese. And that kind of differentiates it for cooking and for application to be a thing of its own that can pair and partner with some things that cheese otherwise couldn't pair or partner with. So we do five continuous varieties of that, and then another 5 seasonals. And we make a cheddar curd, which we started making just to sell more milk because the yields aren't very good. So you utilize a lot of milk really fast. And that's just because it's drier than chev is. And we needed to move milk volume because of the pandemic. A huge percentage of our business was selling into grocery or food service, and we had to transition that and focus on consumer goods very heavily through the pandemic. But I think my wholesale dropped to 10% of what it was the year prior in total sales during the pandemic. And so that was like half of the cheese. And the animals make the milk, whether you sell the cheese or not. So I needed a way to sell more of it. The last product we make is a feta, and it's just an all goat feta. It's phenomenal. It costs too much to make for me to offer it to any of the restaurants or long-term to anybody, but we keep making it because I really want to be able to eat some every once in a while. And that's one of the benefits of owning a creamery.
Sweet. And so thinking about the uniqueness of these goat dairy products, what would you want to tell your average consumer about these products?
So I spent a lot of my career in sensory. And during that time, I worked for Rogue Creamery. I worked for Tillamook. I did sensory extensively with both of those organizations and with some research out of North Carolina State. And when I got ready to consider Portland Creamery, I didn't really know if it was for me until I sat down and did a competitive tasting, which is a benchmarking technique we use to see how our product compares to everybody else. Now, it wasn't my product yet. It was the original founder's product still before I bought the company. But the fact was, it was the best out of anything I tasted. And I thought to myself, I would be crazy to not buy this cheese when I just sat down, and a random lot of it from this creamery was better than any of the other products that I could buy in our region. And those are products that are very famous, big name creameries who I have watched win Best in Show at American Cheese Society. And it was just as good, and it was clean, and it had this sense of place in Portland, and those things came together just to make it the right option.
Awesome. That sounds delicious. Kind of taking a zoom out, what would you want people to know not only about dairies, but also about the dairy industry?
I think that the main thing that I would want to communicate about the dairy industry is that agriculture is something that involves living creatures, living things, living animals, living food. Food is life, and the opposite, right? We eat some minerals, we have micronutrient needs, but everything else, every vitamin, every macronutrient, protein, amino acid, all of those, they're only created in life. And what we eat has to be from living things. That is an absolute truth in and of itself. And so when you think about agriculture and our interface with all of these living things, and the impact that has on the planet, whether that be for deforestation to create more growing areas, or whatever that environmental impact is, they're all going to be trade-offs against what was there, and conservationism to start with. And I think that if we could change the narrative away from big versus small to long-term sustainable practices, not long-term practice, that would benefit our entire society forever. There is no ethical way to move away from mass scale food production with the population of humans on the planet. There is no ethical way to do that. There's not a good outcome that involves entire return to small local farms. But I think that part of the solution that helps us accept the large scale food production, and make the right ethical decision moving forward in agriculture as a whole, is a combination. And it's the education and the connection and the respect for those living things that comes from local food. And it's the efficiencies and optimization of massive production of calories that comes with a large farm. And I have been on small unethical farms, and I have been on large, extremely ethical farms. And I've been on small, extremely ethical farms and large unethical ones. And my point is, there's a lot of distrust in different aspects of the food system, and it often, I think that it is misplaced, because all food is living, and we should integrate it into our community and our lifestyles and our conversations in that way.
Our next question is, what is an important job skill that most people don't talk about?
I would say that, I don't know if it's a job skill, but I'm going to give you this answer either way, because it's something that came to mind right away. When you think about going out for an interview, I want to talk about one of the big mistakes that I made early on in my career, and continued to make, and probably still continue to make today, and struggle with. And that is that I went out with a skill set that was exceptional at getting whatever job I wanted, and not necessarily all of the perspective or skills needed to be comfortable saying no to these opportunities that seemed like they were bigger than anything I had ever imagined I would have to look at. I should have said no more. And I should have made sure that the work I was doing was what drove me to happiness, instead of trying to fit into the mold that I thought I was supposed to fit into to succeed in working. And once I said, I'm not wearing button-up shirts anymore, and I'm going to go be myself and fight for the things I believe in, and do it in a way that hopefully creates income, my world really changed, and my opportunities started to blossom, because I was that much better of an employee when I was working based on passion than I was when I was working based on some altruistic view of what I should look like. And I would say, go into it from the very start being extremely picky and extremely introspective, because introspection is the only way you can figure out what makes you tick, what makes you happy in terms of accomplishment. And that is the goal with work. If you achieve that, then it doesn't matter what you make or anything else, because you're there every single day doing what you believe in, and what brings you joy.
What was a really important step in your career?
I think the most important for me comes back to the people who supported me early in my career. And I think that is part of what I'm hoping to become, is part of what I see in the mentors who helped me to get where I am today. Um, the most impactful things I've learned have been from individuals who helped me navigate hard things. And I think the most valuable thing I took away from my education was a network with those people. The rapid continued education in the industry has been really exciting. I switched over to kind of a biotech role about 3.5 years ago. And that has been really, really mind-boggling for me because of the exposure I got to private equity, investment, to what a pitch looks like, to this whole different world and operation that is the biotech world. And I think that decision, when I made that decision, it was made to follow passion for outcomes, to try and help infants, but also to learn and to have some control over kind of the direction of my life as a whole, to push it toward improving outcomes in society and as much towards helping people as I could. I think that was probably one of the most impactful decisions of my life. And it really is most impactful because of the opportunity it gave me to engage in education that otherwise I don't know of any way to get. There are some things you have to get in the industry because they don't exist outside of that.
Yeah, awesome. That is super cool. Thank you for sharing that with us. So thinking about where you are now and looking back, what obstacles did you have to overcome to get to where you are now?
To tell you the truth, and I don't know if this is the most appropriate forum for this, but I'm going for it anyway.
Go for it.
It's mental health. I struggle severely with mental health, and I had a massive psychological breakdown while I was working for Tillamook. It led to me being despondent, unable to feel emotion for close to 1.5 years. And I bring it up here, even though it might be inappropriate, because I didn't get help. I didn't get treatment. And I have since then, thank goodness. But absolutely, from the outside, I could appear that I was okay, but I was so broken that my life lacked any joy whatsoever. And I think that part of my role now is sharing that, because I didn't have people to lead me into the treatment that I needed, and I didn't have an environment where it was appropriate to talk about. And I want to be somebody who helps spread that this isn't something to have shame over, that the strongest thing you can possibly do is seek help to help yourself. It's like if you break your leg on a run, I'm also on a rescue team, so this is kind of relevant for me. You break your leg on a run. There are the folks who will sit there and wait for rescue, and there are folks who can get themselves out without ever having anybody come in. But then there's also the people who were there with friends who planned for it, and they're the ones who are out first without any long-term problems. They're safe, they're healthy, and they're that way because they are relying on other people. And it is an injury, and it's an acute injury, and we treat it so differently, but it's really the same. And you have to have that connection, and you have to have the trust. And if I had been able to navigate that faster, it would have really accelerated my career. Thank goodness it didn't really harm my career. But it, in a way, it was good, because it changed my perspective so drastically that I was able to really commit to living a lifestyle that I love. and commit to doing the work that I love and know that that's where I should be. And know that when I fail, that's okay because I'm doing what I like because I believe in it and I'm going to try again. So I think that it was a blessing and a curse for me, and it changed me in a way that I want to be that person. I want to advocate, and I want to be available, and I want to talk about it in every forum, so that we have an opportunity to get people help early, so that we can no longer have stigmatized mental health problems. Because to the rest of the world, I looked healthy and happy, and it was really something you don't hear about a lot, and because of that I didn't navigate it properly. So sharing that is probably one of my long-term goals because of what I experienced.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate you sharing that. I know mental health among people in the agricultural field is often overlooked, so it's nice to hear somebody bring attention to it and also bring a positive side to it. So I really appreciate you sharing that. So looking forward, what experiences have helped you the most in your career?
I think committing and engaging in the community is what has brought me the most opportunity. Not only in terms of knowing the right people to ask, but I couldn't, there's no way in a million years I could be successful without the network of support through Oregon State University, through ODI, through Oregon Angels Investment Network. Just recently started working with them, through a lot of different places, even the regulation bodies are phenomenal partners. I had a recall, unfortunately, last year, which thank goodness was not actually deleterious to anybody. No harm, no sickness. Actually, it was a record-keeping issue, a paper issue, not a product issue. But man, I had such incredible partnership from the team at the state of Oregon helping me navigate it. It's just really, really phenomenal to live in an area where that network exists, and to have had the right mentors who could help me get involved. And then those friendships are absolutely what makes every day worth doing for me. Without those, then there wouldn't be this community and the people, and driving toward this long-term goal of sustainable, ethical agriculture is my goal. And so without those people, I wouldn't be here.
Awesome. Thank you. Those sound like great experiences and awesome insight on how great it is to work with your partners. So thinking about youth, what kind of activities can students participate in now that would help them to prepare for a future career that's similar to yours?
I would say two things. Try and engage and make friends with leaders and business owners around you, because friendships are going to turn into jobs, in my opinion, much more often than interviews. And they're going to turn into the jobs that you want because you make the friends that you want. And that would be my number one, is try and engage that way. And number two is try and stop that internal monologue that says, I can't do that yet, or that's not possible for me right now because. And what I would challenge you with is who let's say Kellogg. Imagine if Kellogg said, this is a little too much to bite off right now. I could do it, but I don't want to take a loan, so I'm just going to go work for somebody, right? Every single company, it doesn't matter how big, starts somewhere. And the opportunity that those people get to play with once they're entrenched in business just keeps coming, because they believe they get to do that. But I think that's most of it. If you believe that you can achieve it, then even really big undertakings, starting large companies at the right scale for making artisan cheese, or really going after some of these big undertakings, go for it. You don't need all the skills. You don't need to have the money yourself in the bank. There are people who will help. And if you are passionate about it, make it a reality. Don't put up those fences or stops for yourself. And that, I think, held me back, equal to anything else in my career, was thinking I can't do that yet. And when I got ready to do it, I didn't have any different resources or skills than I did 5 years ago when I thought I can't yet. I just had less fear of failure. And so I let myself take that risk and go for it. And I'd say go for it as often as you can.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that advice. And thinking about advice, if you could go back in time and give advice to your younger self, what would it be?
I think if I could go back and give advice to myself, it would be to not play the game by the rules that I was taught, that I've been shown in society. A lot of them aren't logical. There's a lot that we're trying to do, and thinking outside of the box is a great solution. And you can do things for 1/10 the cost and create something real. If you don't follow all the little social acceptance rules and whatnot that we're taught very early on. That would be one. And the other is invest in relationships and people before any other aspect of yourself or your life. Because if you don't have the support structure, at least for me, it's way too scary to take the types of risk that an entrepreneur has to take to be successful. So build the support structure so that you can sleep at night when you're taking those risks.
Awesome. I love that advice. I think we can all apply that to what we're doing wherever we're at. And so our last question for the interview is, what are you the most proud of?
Oh my daughter, hands down. She amazes me every single day. In my career, I think that's a really hard question. I think what makes me tick and what I want to be known for after I'm gone is being someone who focuses on doing the right thing every time. One aspect of the world that I really don't think is appropriate is that corporations legally don't have the same ethics as individuals, and they have like looser ethics than individuals because they are actually driven legally to return as many dollars to their shareholders as possible. And that legal obligation means that even if they could do something that's pretty great for society, it's actually illegal for them to do it if it takes away from the returns long-term to a shareholder. And that shouldn't be something that ever happens. So my goal is to run the company, any company I'm part of, in a way that I can be 100% sure is perfectly in line with the ethics of small local agriculture and sustainable companies and long-term employment with succession and retirement and reasonable work expectations and not burnout positions and all of those things. And if I left a legacy, I would hope that it will ultimately be these companies as employee-owned organizations that return all the investment in the community to the community itself. So I think so far I've been able to stick really, really stringently to those ethical rules that I've kind of set for Portland Creamery. And I am proud of operating the company that way, and I could be more profitable, but I'm never going to make that decision. And so I hope that in that way, I can make that visible, and that more companies can make the decision to function in a way that is as a public benefit corporation, or an LLC is allowed to function, but at the larger level of these corporations who are otherwise beholden to their shareholders.
Awesome. That is definitely something to be proud of. I really appreciate you taking the time to visit with us today for our Ag Science Cafe, and just really appreciate your time. So thank you.
It was wonderful to meet you. Thank you so much as well.